Okay, so let's talk about states. Now, states, um, you can think of a state that a state creates mental circumstances that you find yourself in. Now, I'm just speaking about the world of imagination. I want you to see how it's more important who you are inside this world of imagination than it is who you are in this outer world. Okay? And what tends to happen is we struggle within this world of imagination, which is really the world we shouldn't be struggling in, because we can express what we want to express in it. The question is, why aren't we expressing what we want to express, and why are we experiencing what we are experiencing within ourselves? And it's because of your state. Or a state, you can think of it as a self-concept. And a self-concept is a feeling towards the I, or the I am. Okay? So we have these feelings towards ourselves, and it's this feeling that creates scenarios that we find ourselves in inside our minds. So I don't love using negative examples. It's just much easier to use negative examples to prove my point. For someone who is very insecure, they will find themselves in certain mental circumstances where that will be expressed. Maybe their friends they think their friends don't like them, or they experience their partners leaving them, or whatever it is, maybe the case. Or they sort of imagine scenarios where they're rejected. These scenarios are being caused by your self-concept. So your inner experience is shaped by your self-concept. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Your inner experience, which is the most important experience, is shaped by your self-concept. And your self-concept is the way you feel about yourself, towards yourself. It's about the I. That's why Neville tells us to change the feeling of I. But how does one change the feeling of I if they don't know what the I is? And this is where I think it's crucial to understand that the I am, is the individual who lives inside the world of imagination, which is you. So you, the same way you are an individual living in this outer world, eating food and talking to people and going places, you are doing that same thing inside yourself. But the being inside yourself, unlike the outer being, has the ability to change and move within this world effortlessly when it desires to. The problem is that we struggle to move inside of imagination because we don't know who we are within it. Because if we knew who we were, we wouldn't worry about any mental circumstance. If we can see that circumstances are mental, then we can see the phrase that circumstances don't matter. Now, like I said earlier in one of my earlier videos about how everybody is you pushed out and how confusing that could be. But if we just took that same concept and just applied it only within the world of imagination, we can see how true it really is, that everybody within me truly is reflecting me. They are me pushed out. And likewise, the phrase circumstances don't matter. Well, yes, mental circumstances don't matter, because mental circumstances can always be changed. For every problem inside the world of imagination, the solution's there. We just have to access that solution. And the solution, remember, is I am. It's me. I am, to me, is the individual inside the world of imagination who has attached self-concepts to himself or herself and expresses these self-concepts, whether or not they're good, bad, or indifferent, as Neville would say. It doesn't matter what you hold about yourself, you will express it. And it's effortless expression. If you enter the world of imagination and you start fearing something, your fear will arise inside this world and show you. It's not doing it to scare you. Your imagination is not trying to frighten you. It's just showing you things you have accepted. It truly is not trying to frighten you. It's actually trying to show you so you can fix it. If you have repetitive thoughts that are fearful, it's It's showing you what needs to be changed. It's actually showing you what you actually desire to be changed. The only reason why you don't change it is because you don't know who you are within it. And I want to get into that into a different video. For this video, I just want to talk about states. Or, yeah, I just want to talk about states in this video. So if you want to change your inner experience, the scenarios you're finding yourself in, if you find yourself arguing with people, or if you find yourself in situations you don't like to be in inside your mind, or you find yourself stuck, remember, you can't be stuck here. You have to learn to change the feeling of I. Now, to change the feeling of I, it's actually simple if you understand that you are the I am that precedes things inside this world. That every expression is just a reflection of you. And if you can really accept that nobody within you really has any power over you, they're just reflecting. Even if you conjured up people within your mind who have more power than you, it's just you doing it. And if you have a desire for a new self-concept, you have to view states, these things that you want to attach to I am, you have to view them almost like an itch. If you have an itch, you scratch it. Correct? Do you feel guilty for scratching your itch? No. I don't really know anybody who feels guilty for scratching themselves when there's an itch. Well, the same way in imagination, think of an itch as a new self-concept. Don't feel guilty, or don't feel unworthy. You just scratch it. You fulfill it. If you want to change, there's no bondage within you that stops you from expressing something new within yourself. Now, what I can tell you from experience for me, what tended to happen was when I would go to assume a new state, and it would feel so incredibly lovely to be this new thing and expressing that in my inner world, I would become afraid. I would become afraid of fully embodying it. And I was almost afraid of how much power I actually had for a while. And I share this because you might be in a similar situation. That you might find yourself thinking, is it really that easy just to change my state? It's that simple for me to just express something new. I have that much power and control. And as somebody from me, like I grew up with almost no power, no control. So it feels quite imbalanced when I first found out who I was within myself, that I was allowed to change and just say yes to myself. It was quite a shock. And I felt a little bit embarrassed for how low I thought of myself. But I let that go, and you just, like I said, you think of it like an itch. You just scratch it. That's all you have to do. But what tends to happen is that we take upon the impressions that were given to us growing up, and we live that way inside of imagination. So if you aren't taking, for example, in my life, I grew up walking on eggshells 24/7. So how do you think I lived inside of imagination? I was walking on eggshells inside my own mind. I wasn't taking these long, confident strides and these confident appropriations within myself. I was scared. I was scared to just take things inside my own mind. I don't shame myself for it. It's just I understand why I was walking on eggshells in my own mind. But it's just an itch. That's all it is. You have to view these states as less than you because you are the I am. No matter what state it is, it's always less than you. Always. You can't have a state that's greater than you because states are, by definition, powerless unless they're given I am. A state doesn't have the power to express itself without you. So if you can accept that imagination is the only reality, I want you to think of it like this. Let's say you want to express something, and you feel like maybe it's impossible to express it. Now, I want you just to remove the outer world for a second, and just think in terms of imagination, inside this world. I want you to name something to me that you don't believe you can express inside this world. I think you'll struggle, because what you will find is that no matter what you want, you can express it in this world. Now, what Neville's trying to make us do is realize that that has to be enough evidence that you are who you want to be. If that can be enough evidence, you truly are the master of your own fate. Inside this world of imagination, where I think is the only experience we actually have. So, if you want to be the master of your own fate inside this world, learn to change states. And what you can do is learn to exalt yourself within yourself. So maybe you started off where I started off, where you're walking on eggshells. But slowly, on your own pace, realize who you are within this world and start breaking the rules, if you will. Maybe I was walking on eggshells for so long and I'm so used to it. Well, let me just break the rule a little bit. Maybe growing up, it was sort of wrong for me to be confident. Okay, fine. Let me start being confident in my mind and see if that expresses. And then, look at next thing I know, I'm expressing confidence inside my own mind. Oh, okay. Well, let me try a little bit. Let me try some wealth. Let me see what wealth's like. And let me see if that expresses inside my own mind. And all of a sudden, I find myself expressing that in my mind. Let me try love. Let me try respect. And the next thing I know, there's really nothing that isn't given to me. Everything can be expressed in this world, and nothing's withheld from me. So now I have to learn, this is why I speak so much about exalting the inner self, is that it's really the inner self that must be exalted. It's not so much this outer self. This outer self truly is just mimicking what I'm doing within myself. So if I'm afraid, it's not this outer self that's afraid. It's the inner self that's scared. If I feel like I'm in bondage, it's not the outer self that's in bondage. It's the inner self. And if I can see that it's the inner self who wants to change states, it's the inner self who wants to express something new inside this world of imagination, well then yes, you truly are limitless. Because there's nothing you can't express inside this world. This is a beautiful world of imagination where all things exist. All expressions that you want to express are here. They just need occupancy, as Neville says. And occupancy is remembering that inside this world there is no future and there is no past. Things express themselves now. Regardless of when they happen, they express themselves now. So you remove ideas of the future and the past while you're in this world. And you simply experience the expressions of what you're trying to achieve. There really isn't trying to achieve here either, because everything already is. All it takes is your acceptance of it. And this is why I speak so much about saying yes to everything inside your imagination, because if you can learn to say the word yes and not argue the point, the level of freedom you'll feel will be it might scare you like it scared me. Is resisting that urge to argue when you say, I am whatever it is. And then the moment you say that and you feel that as a present tense fact, because that's what the I is, that's what the I am is a present tense feeling of being. So if you change your present tense feeling of who you are now, what you will find is that your mind will start to express it within yourself. And just keep letting it express. Don't hinder it. Don't argue with it. Just keep letting it express. And what you will find is it is that simple to change yourself. It is that simple. If you realize that, you have to realize who you are within this world. That you're not here's what tends to happen, is that people including myself, would tend to go into this world of imagination and they say, well, we really have a choice. Who are we going to be in here? We can be anything, right? So who are we going to be? And what tends to happen is people go into their inner worlds and they say, well, I'm going to be somebody who's worried about this thing. And I'm going to be somebody who's frightened about future events. And I'm going to be somebody who shames myself for my past. And I'm going to be somebody who thinks he can't have that or this. And we live this way inside our minds. And then we wonder, why am I not receiving what I want? Why is it that my world is the way it is? Well, I tell you, your world is the way it is because of your self-concept. Because there's nothing but you that's expressing here. So I always tell people, start with the imagination. Remember, Neville says imagining creates reality. Or I should say it manifests itself into reality, into this reality. So don't be so concerned about your outer world. Figure out who you are in this world, in this inner world. And learn to express. You really have to learn to express what you want to express in this world in order to express it in this outer world. And I mean this seriously, because if you aren't used to expressing what you want in this inner world where all things can be expressed, you won't express it in your outer world. You just won't. So really learn the art of assumption, as Neville would call it, the art of assumption, of assuming things about the self, and resist the impulse to restrict and deny yourself. If you can restrict that, you'll find yourself effortlessly expressing everything you want inside your mind. Now persist in that. This is why persistence is so wonderful. Because it's persistent in the expression of who you want to be. It's not persisting in trying to become it. You already are it in the mind. Just continue being it until it will express itself in your outer world naturally. Because this world's natural, so you want to feel natural about it inside your mind. So don't feel that you need to force yourself to become. And if you need proof that you don't need to force yourself to become things in your mind, just watch it express itself. You can imagine yourself a certain way in an instant. You're expressing it. Like, it's almost as if the current circumstance you just were in, the current mental problem you were just in, doesn't matter to imagination. It just rearranged itself, and you find yourself expressing something new. What tends to happen is we don't believe that new expression. We think we have to work our way into it. It's like we already are it. Just continue being it, regardless of your outer circumstances. Continue being it inside yourself. No one needs to know what you're doing. It's in secret. Now, so you can feel that change is not impossible. It's actually very possible. In fact, we're supposed to do it. Neville tells us all the time that you're supposed to change the feeling of I. Like you are allowed to. You are allowed to change inside this world. Nothing is restricting you. There's no one telling you, no, you can't. Maybe you harmed somebody in your past and you feel guilty, and you're like, well, I don't want to do that again. I want to change, but I feel guilty. You're doing that. You don't have to. You can change. Imagination doesn't restrict you from your past at all. As Neville says, it doesn't look to your background. It doesn't matter. As Neville would give, he would give the example that if you were in jail and the bars closed and you want to be free, imagination doesn't stop you from visualizing yourself being free. It gives you all things. Now really take that example to heart. This is somebody who has been just told that they have 25 years. He says, you just heard the sentence and now you're behind these bars. Neville said he would assume himself free because it's a reflection of him anyways. So if he wants to change his outer world, he frees himself in his mind first. That's what he did when he was in the army. That's what he did when he wanted to get married. He said that when he wanted to get married the second time, because how he had a first wife, he said that when he wanted to get married, he was worried about how that would work. And this is Neville. This is somebody who clearly knows the law and teaches it, but he forgot. Because we tend to forget when things feel serious to us. When they feel important to us, we tend to forget to apply this law. Because we think, oh, well, this is such a big thing that I want. What if I can't have it? So then he tried to work out a scenario where like, well, how would I divorce my current wife, and how could I be? He was trying to figure it out, and then he stopped, and he realized, oh, what am I doing? I'm not practicing the law. So he went to sleep that night, sleeping as the person he wants to be inside his mind. He associated himself with the inner man, who is expressing the thing he wants, which is being happily married. And then next thing you know, it worked itself out in a natural way, and then he found himself to be happily married. So we have to learn to accept our imaginations as the reality, and not this outer world. This outer world is a dream. It really can be molded and shifted. Now, I don't know if there's limitations to the dream. I'm not really concerned about that. I just say yes and move on with my day. I say yes to what I want. I feel that my imagination loves me enough to say yes, like it truly loves me, because it grants me all things. And so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to express yourself here. It's that freedom of expression. Grant yourself the freedom of expression in this world, where you'll find that the freedom of expression truly is almost the greatest freedom you could have. It really is the greatest freedom to express what you want to express here. Don't allow someone to tell you no, because there is no one else to tell you no. There's only I am in this world. I'm talking about the world of imagination. So don't be concerned about the mental circumstances you find yourself in. You might be frightened about a thought, but don't be concerned, because you can always just move to somewhere else. You can't be stuck here. You just can't. In order to be stuck, you'd have to feel and say, I am stuck. But you're the I am, so you can apply a new thing to it, and then find yourself expressing that. So what you can do is you can learn to live in this world of by understanding that imagination has granted you all things inside of it. And all things I mean by that is you can express the things you desire to express, no matter what it is, inside this world. You can now start to live in an imagination where, there's no regret, there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no problems, there's no problems that can't be solved. There's no fear in it. You can live in an imagination where there's safety. Your desires are always fulfilled, where you are expressing the things you desire to express. You're expressing the love you desire to share. You can receive the love you want to share. All things exist in here. But to be honest, many of us don't live that way, because we don't know who we are within it. We think we have to be these, I'm going to go inside this world of imagination, and I'm going to imagine myself really feeling like I can't have what I want. And when you realize that you're deciding to express that in this infinite plane of imagination, you'll find how silly it is. And you might feel what I felt, which was a bit silly. I felt a bit silly that I was being this way inside my mind. I put myself so low, thinking that I was being humble. Don't feel that you need to bring yourself down. There's no one else expressing here but you. You can lift yourself to great heights in your mind and have people love that you're there. It's up to you, really. Like, the limitations you decide to impose on yourself inside this world of imagination is truly up to you. And you don't want it to be up to somebody else. Let it be up to you. And you might find yourself, like I found myself, almost fearing certain states because they're so grand. And I was like, I don't know if I'm worthy of that. It's like, again, I'm claiming I'm going to be somebody inside my mind who feels they're unworthy for the things within it. Don't be that person. You're worthy of all things. Because you have imagination. You were granted imagination, which contains all things. So how can you feel unworthy of it if all things are yours?